Pleasant Wednesday morning to everybody. I hope you are finding some peace and that God is resting in your hearts and showing you His ways and not the world's ways. In the weather today, the theme continues to be the cool air and the front that's worked into the east. There's really not all that much going on. In the next few days, you're going to see a bigger high pressure build back into the northern plains and down across the center of the country. And across the northeast, there's kind of fluctuating little areas of low pressure and cold fronts, little kind of disturbances. They'll cause some rain and cloudier conditions in some areas. But overall, that pattern is kind of sticking around and not too noisy, not too troublesome. You'll see on the map today there's some cooler air again is starting to build up over the North Dakota, Canada, and the flow around the high pressure, the clockwise flow, is gonna, as that high builds into the US and grows in size, it's gonna pull more of that cool air back into the center and even parts of the southern US. And so the weather we've been having over a lot of the country, very similar going forward. Now, there was the fire in, I think it was Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley maybe, but Napa Valley, the wine country north of Sacramento. They had a rough fire day a couple days ago. I think they're gradually getting that under control. It's not good, it's not easy, but the winds around the high pressure offshore should be a little more favorable. It's not a perfect day, but it's not as bad of a day. So I think in terms of that, it's slowly being put under control. And there's a stationary front over the southeast parts of Florida where I'm at. And so it's kind of dreary here and not that cool, but for most of the country, it's a lot nicer. And it's really gonna be the pattern that continues. As we go into tonight, you'll see the cool air starts to pull around deeper into the country as the high pressure builds further south. Other than that, nothing really changes. So tomorrow, same feature continues. The high continues to work southeast and build in, and the cool air kind of spreads into the Ohio River, towards the Ohio River Valley, Great Lakes, but really not a lot of change. Into Thursday or into Friday, you see a little low pressure develop, a little more active in kind of the Great Lakes area. Got a lot of lake effect rain. It's not cold enough for snow, but the same kind of features. And there's a little low pressure that develops over like New York, almost like a little front, but nothing too significant. And the cool air's kind of working around between that high and that low, funneling down into the pretty far deep into the US. Tennessee, the Appalachian Mountains, we'll see it. Another little cooler shot, but it'll be short-lived. It's gonna be this little oscillation kind of battle back and forth. Not too crazy, just kind of swaying on the remnants of this big system. It's kind of like the ramifications, the turbulence left by it. I mean, that's a weird way of putting it, but and there's talk of a low developing down in the Caribbean along that stationary front. So far, it doesn't look like it's going to be much. Probably move into Mexico. This system, there may be another one next week, but right now, not looking at anything serious or significant or anything to worry about. Just kind of this same pattern. There's really not a lot to say. Into Saturday, you can see the high starting to weaken, and the effects of that high, the cool air being pulled around, are starting to taper off a little bit. So we kind of go back now. We've got a little low down around Missouri and a little front, maybe a little moisture. I'm not sure there'll be much of any rain, but we'll see. But it's again going to be very short-lived. By Sunday, it's back to the high pressure and a cooler air, and you kind of see that pattern back and forth. Little low pressure, little high pressure, just enough to keep reinforcing kind of the weather we've got. It won't totally heat up, but it won't really powerfully cool down. Just really short-lived systems moving across the US. And that's really all there is to say about the weather. There's not a lot to it right now. Isn't that a positive thing? Now, wanted to talk, look into James 3. Well, before we look at James 3, I wanted to give a praise, kind of a look at what got to give God the praise, because I'll be honest, yesterday was really, really a tough day. It was one of those days where I felt like I just don't belong, and I can't do this, and I'm too messed up for God's love, and what's the point? I don't understand what's going on. It doesn't make any sense, and just kind of this bleakness to life. And there was a lot going on. I ended up deciding not to put up a message. I hope that wasn't too much trouble to anybody, but that was one thing. And I tried to use the day to work on some of the scripts that I've still needed to have work. Last evening, something much worse happened. I found that script that I'd been working on, this program to kind of make this whole process easier. I'd been working on that same thing for 2 weeks, and somehow the text editor I was working in deleted the whole thing. I mean, literally, not even just what I'd been working on. I'd been saving it and keeping it up to date, but it deleted it all. And it's happened to me a couple times, and at first I was, okay, well, we're going to find it, we're going to fix it. Also, a separate issue deleted all my browser, my Explorer, my web pages that I had open. And that, if you know me, I have a lot of web pages open. I kind of work quickly through different pages and leave things to look at later, and so, but I lost 2 weeks of work, it looked like, and it was just crippling. Everything that I'd made progress on this pretty much was suddenly gone. And at first, okay, we'll find it. I wasn't finding it. And talk about the low of lows, but God persists. God perseveres. It was like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. last night. It was the last thing I did. I just happened to check one more thing that I thought I'd already checked. And there it was. It wasn't perfect. I lost about 3 days of work, the work I did yesterday, but that can be fixed. It's not bleak and you've lost everything. It's, hey, okay, God answers. And he showed me from the start. He put this heart in me that I know you're going to answer, God. I know you're going to come through. Man, I know, even like David, he's so confident in God, but then he gets there and like, God, where are you? You're not coming through. How do I live? How do I go on? It's easy to think like, this isn't happening. But it reminds me of another time where I was sure nothing could happen. It reminds me of so many times. That's when God answers. No, he's not always going to find your file. And I was thinking about evil and the devil, and the bigger picture of my life is the devil got into he actively messed things up, and it was clearly him in some important relationships and some other important things going on in my life. And how do you go to God? I don't know how to respond to that, because God, you said you'd be with me, and I believed, and now everything's just destroyed. And it got me thinking about, God didn't do that. God is the bringer of all good things. The devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, or steal, kill, and destroy. I know that. I know that was the devil. They were lies. They were false things. It was clear. It wasn't from God. And look, that's the first thing. Do I have this wrong? And God, I want to be wrong, because then I can just fix this and go forward and I'll be okay. But it's kind of crippling in your life when I don't know what I did. I can't see anything. I've asked you 100 times, God. I've laid it out. I've tried to seek to, maybe this was wrong. This must have been wrong. And God keeps putting, nope. But what I really thought about today is how in the Bible, in the entire history, God allowed the things of evil to bring about. He allowed the things of evil. He allowed Satan to do things in his believer's life. For all we believe, God has us. God's going to take care of us. God won't let us be harmed. I was thinking about Stephen, and even like Paul. And Satan works through people. He let people murder Stephen. That wasn't just he's just directing to another path. They hurt. They lost somebody they cared about. Paul's ship was shipwrecked. It wasn't just, oh, cool, thanks, God. That hurt. He was thrown in prison. He was beaten. These aren't things that just no big deal. He didn't have to not be in pain. I mean, it talks about how they were hurt. And Jesus is the ultimate example of that. God let Satan murder Jesus. The ultimate sinless man, God let Satan do something to him. And the verse that's always troubled me, or kind of, it's sat on me for the last months as I've been going through this and struggling with this. It's way back to Joseph. Joseph, he's sold away to slavery, and his brothers come, and I'm so sorry. Something along those lines. I'm not sure they totally apologized, but they feared him, and he says, fear not. Something along the lines of, fear not. Ants. Something along the lines of, fear not. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. And it's like, wait, God meant that for good? Does that mean the people didn't do it? Does that mean they don't have to be sorry? And he kind of acts like they don't need to be, and he just, hey, life is good. Forgiveness. But he allowed Satan to, I mean, I'm sure Satan, God allowed, but Satan is the one who sold them, who allowed Joseph to be kidnapped and sent away. I mean, that doesn't sound like just a God thing. That sounds like steal and kill and destroy and hurt. How does he put it like that? I'm not sure I can, if given the opportunity. And I don't have all the answers, but I know this is God. This is how things are done. It's clear from the apostles to Jesus himself to the Old Testament. Satan wins battles. God wins the war. For all Jesus being crucified meant, Satan celebrated. God won. God won when it came to Joseph. God won when it came to Paul and Stephen. And I remember where the apostles, they have a dispute and they have to go separate ways. That didn't sound like when you read that, it doesn't sound real God like, yay, God's working in the spirit in all of us. It sounded like they were at odds. They were doing things to each other. I don't know about that, but all the times where Paul goes to a place and he's cast out, or he has to leave, or he has to flee, they're evil things. Those are evil people doing evil things. But God wins the war. And he won the war in all those situations. It shows he hasn't gone away, because I mean, that's how I feel like. God, how could you let that happen? Why are you letting this stand? Why is this way? But he didn't. He doesn't. Not in the long run. He has a bigger plan. He is over you. And I tell you what, it's a time right now where I think we're all struggling for peace. Country's in a lot of turbulence. I mean, if you watched the debate last night, it was just, to me, it was just gut-wrenching. I think I saw a lot of people who felt the same way. That it just kind of made you cry even, or just hurt. Like, this is what we're down to. I want to encourage you from James 3. When I read it, it just stood out to me. Number one, realize God's over all this. He can do all this. Number two, I want to encourage you not to be caught up in this too much. I want to tell you, if you believe one of these politicians is the answer, or one of these parties, organizations is the answer to life, that's not what God's saying. I see in the people running, I see a lot of sin, a lot of issues of sin. I see things to do with murder. I see things to do with pride. I see problems with pride. I see problems with sexual definition and purity. I see greed. I don't see a lot of love in any of those people. Don't idolize man. Don't put your hopes in man. I'll tell you this, Jesus, I try not to talk a lot about politics or things like that, because they cause more stress, and I'm not sure we're making a big difference when we argue with people and make our points known constantly. And I'll show you something in a second, but Jesus came here. He didn't cast off and destroy. All the Jews were expecting him to come with a sword and just be the military leader and destroy the Romans who were persecuting and hurting people, or at least cast off Herod, and he was the evil king who was persecuting his own people, harming his own people. Jesus didn't put his passion into that. If you really think the answer to life is in man, is in our plans, our orchestrations, our minds, our abilities, if you think if we just work hard enough, this will solve all our problems, this is the answer to life, I don't know that you're looking in the right place. I'm not saying don't vote or don't even, you can talk politics, but this is you got to be careful on this issue. I plead with you this because it leads to a lot of negative things. I'll just go straight to Matthew 3, 9, 10. I mean, it's talking about the tongue, and actually verse 1 says, "My brethren, be not many masters, knowing we shall receive a greater condemnation." And that word masters is talking about don't everybody be a teacher. Or when you're talking on Facebook, when you're arguing about politics with your friends and your family, you're being a teacher. You're telling other people how to think. You're saying this is the way it is, and you're vehemently convincing people. No Democrat, no Republican Party are going to solve everything. They both have bad sins in their hearts. And it's not that we shouldn't care and try, but if you are trying to be this, if your answer is this, I'll teach you this, I'll show you this, if it's not Christ, you're in the wrong place. That wasn't the answer 2,000 years ago. And I'll go actually over to this. I still have it open. There it is. I just happened to see today on my Facebook some writings by C.S. Lewis, and I always thought he was pretty cool. He puts things in amazing ways, and maybe I'll put some more of his stuff on here. But he in this writing, he tells people, we are not kings, we are not senators. Let us beware lest, while we torture ourselves in vain about the status of Europe, we neglect either Verona or Oxford. And what he's saying in that, I'm pretty sure, is he's saying Verona and Oxford, those are cities in Europe. He's not talking about them. He's talking about your sister Verona, your friend Oxford, the people in your lives. That's where life is found. One vote isn't going to change the world. Just watch. If it doesn't come down to one vote, the election, then you didn't have to vote. Now, I'm not saying don't vote, but I'm saying you have a bigger thing. If you think you're doing great things by making your vote, look to your family, look to your friends, look to your own world. He even says, I have always believed that Voltaire, infidel that he was, I don't know much about Voltaire, I know he was like a philosopher, thought aright in his admonition to cultivate our own gardens. It starts at home. And I'll show you some verses that connect to that in just a second. Let me point out, C.S. Lewis, this is written in 1948. This is World War II. If there was ever an example of political parties and good versus evil, it seems like that was probably it. And yet he was still urging people, look, this isn't where answers are found. This doesn't solve everything. It's not this is pure and this is evil. If your focus is on what's going on in the world, you're going to be stressed. You're going to be, we got to win this election. This person's going to ruin the country, and this person's going to make it great. We've been through, in my lifetime, we've had 2 Democrat presidents for 16 years, and we've had, I guess, 4 or 5 Republican presidents for 20-some years. In the last 20 years, we've gone back and forth. As much as this person or this person may not be a good person or have problems, I don't think they're out to ruin the world, and I don't think they're the spawn of Satan. There is a right and a wrong, and look, there's those sins. There are important things we need to be focusing on when we vote, asking God for understanding and to see His things. There's got to be humility in us. I don't have all the answers. Show me what the truth is. But what stood out to me as I read was, then it goes into the tongue in in James 3. I hope I didn't say Matthew 3. And God's been pulling me to read this for a long time. He keeps saying Matthew 3, and I keep not reading it. So it's very poignant what it says today. It talks about the problems with the tongue, the dangers of the tongue, and then it says, therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Are you cursing the opposite party, some person in a party? They were made in the image of God. That may be messed up. Our battles are against the rulers of the darkness, powers and principalities, not man. My brethren, out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. Why look at your Facebook posts or your arguments with your relatives about these political topics? Did you show love? Did you show care? Did you say some harsh things, some mean things to score some points? Did you curse them? And that doesn't mean I curse you to die of an evil death. I mean, that's the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same meaning as the commandments. It says, don't curse God's name. Don't use God's name in vain. Do you speak of them as if they're little and say bad words to them? And is that really what we need? You so important to get Mr. Democrat or Mr. Republican in that you curse your brother? No, I want to speak peace to you. Don't give up on politics. Don't just say it's useless. We have a purpose here. We are supposed to make our good choices, to pray for our leaders. But don't let that become your identity, because your identity is found in Christ, not in a politician. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. For where envying and strife, so that's like you envy somebody, you want what they have, and strife, that's argumentative. I mean, I'm not saying there can't be valid criticisms sometimes, but if you just speak of the other party of people as evil, as bad, and just deride them, for where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable. Peace. Is there peace going on with this politics stuff that you're if you're one of those who are talking and arguing about it all the time? Gentle, just to make sure you got peace. Gentle, easy to be entreated, easy to be kind of friendly, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy in political thinking, in our own politics. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. That's what I'm here to talk to you of. Always. Peace. Don't let politics be your stress, be a distraction. Make your vote. Research the issues. Sure, please. Talk to friends. Have a healthy discussion. Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, you do have to stand for what you believe in. That's definitely true. But if your stand becomes ugly and painful, if your stand is causing you to sit up nights and go, this is so our country's going to be wrecked and this evil man is going to become the leader. I mean, 4 years ago, all the Democrats, that's how they felt when Trump became president. Okay, maybe it hasn't been the perfect presidency. I'm not saying either side, but the world hasn't ended. And so many people are, if Biden becomes president, it's gonna be a moratorium of evil. It's gonna just do evil things to the world. Obama was president for 8 years. Was he the best? We're still here. It didn't destroy the world either. Jesus didn't put his heart into who was leading the country, into rallying for a political party. He put his life into looking to God above. You can try to solve this world. At the end of that C.S. Lewis thing, he quotes William Dunbar, a Scottish poet from 500, 600 years ago. He says, "Man, please thy maker and be merry. This whole world rate at a penny." We're leaving here. Stop focusing on making this world better. And I mean, look, do your best. Your best. Why worry about too much about what the politicians are doing? You have one power. You can vote. There may come a day when we need to stand up against tyranny, true evil, like a Hitler kind of person. Nobody leading the country right now is trying to do that. Is doing that right now. You haven't seen that over the last 4 years. If any leader of any party tries to take over and say, I am in charge, and become a dictator, I'll stand up. I hope you will too. But right now we've had presidents, one after another, that have allowed us the freedom to worship God, to make choices, they've tried to figure out the issues, but that's the whole point. What you can do with your brain doesn't solve things. For all my programming, all the effort I put into programming, my program was gone. And then God brought it back. And that's what I want to ask you to do today. Praise God. Worship God. Seek God. I don't have all the answers. If evil's in your life right now, if Satan's done something, if Satan's doing things, if you're stuck, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't understand things, if you're hurting, friends, I know how that feels. But like this whole site is about peace. It was in that verse, if you caught it. Again, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. Peace will come if you seek peace in your life. God is the author of all peace. Seek God, you will find what you're looking for. I don't have all the answers, but God does. I pray you have a brilliant day. A day of peace, a day of calm, a day that doesn't get drawn away by the enemy, but stays strong, stays in love, stays in worship of God and comforting God. And I hope that I'll see you again tomorrow, Lord willing, or sometime soon. And I'll try to keep bearing through when I don't see the picture and I don't feel worthy and I don't feel capable. God still has a plan. We're going through one day at a time. To God, you be all glory. Have a great day. God bless.